Hello, I'm Alexander Manelli. I'm a documentary filmmaker based in Northeast Pennsylvania. Yeah. So today I just wanted to go through with you, and yes, the sun is going to poke in and out. I'm sorry. I wanted to kind of go through and share with you the lenses that I'll be using and have used now on the Canon C80. Spoiler alert, there are no RF lenses in my lineup. And later on in this video, I'm going to talk about one of the most popular lenses ever, the Sigma 18-35. It is a Super 35 lens. It doesn't cover a full frame sensor. However, we will see what happens when we put it on a full frame sensor. So we'll start at the wide end, and for that I have the Canon 14mm EF 2.8. Slightly older lens, but super wide angle. That 2.8 constant aperture is awesome. So I did buy this 14mm used from lensrentals.com. It doesn't really have that typical wide angle distortion. I kind of like the wide angle distortion. So I'm coming from, as I said in my last video, a Canon C200, a Super 35 sensor. On that, for my wide angle lens, I used the Canon 10-18 4.5 to 5.6 EFS lens. It feels plastic and cheap. It's because it is. Why would I get this lens? It's cheap, it's plasticky. Two reasons. Number one, the image is nice, actually, surprisingly. I do like that slight wide angle distortion you get at the 10mm focal length. I used it a lot. It has image stabilization. I don't like in-camera stabilization. I try not to use a lot of warp stabilization or, software in post-production. It always has that kind of like... That's the one negative on the 14mm 2.8 is it doesn't have image stabilization. So the Canon C80 has digital stabilization built in, and it's not bad. I've tried it. It's good. It's better than the C70s. Nice, solid footage. The only problem is it crops into the image quite a bit. It almost looks like a Super 35 crop, and I'll put in shots of that. Although I do miss the IS on this lens, I am happy to have 2.8 on this. So next lens, another prime lens. This is even older than the 14mm 2.8 EF. This is the 35mm EF 1.4 Mark I. Most of the best shots I ever got in my career were on this lens right here. I have the short stash everyday filter on this, so which I'll do a video about that. It's a good filter, so that makes it even softer. So using this lens, you'll see, and I'll put in some shots here, it's a very kind of dreamy, soft look at 1.4. I mean, if you have a 1.4 lens, you're shooting at 1.4. I don't think I've ever been like, you know what, let me try 5.6 on this. I pull this out when I really want that super beautiful shallow depth of field at 1.4. However, I was using this on the C200. Again, cropped Super 35 sensor. So it was more like a 50 to 52mm. A little bit tighter. Now it's a true 35mm on the C80, but maybe I need to look into a 50mm. I used to actually own the Canon 50mm EF 1.2. I'm curious, what are your favorite 50mm lenses? The focus ring's a little loose. This little rubber, it's a little loose, but okay, one more prime lens, and that is the Canon EF 100mm macro 2.8. I knew I wanted a macro to get those really extreme close-ups. MPB.com. I went on there and got this and another lens, which you'll see, used. Okay, now my main lens for the Canon C80. If you saw my C80 unboxing, you would know what this is. It is the Sigma 24-70 2.8 art lens. The 24-70 is a great zoom range on a full frame sensor. I didn't really use a 24-70 at all on a Super 35 sensor. I felt it was a little, you know, when you get to 24, it's more like a 35, 36, and that's just not wide enough. So I haven't really had a 24-70 before. I got this used off of MPB.com. Saved a lot of money doing that. And I chose the Sigma over the Canon EF 24-70. You know, there's 3 versions of that before they moved to the RF version. I chose this over those Canon EF 24-70s because of the image stabilization. Those don't have it, this does. Sigma calls it OS, or optical stabilization, but yeah, it's good. It works really well. I knew the way I work, I need a little bit of stabilization. I wanted something in the lens. I always feel like a lens stabilization is better than camera stabilization, and definitely better than software. I need a good zoom. I'm a documentary shooter. I need something that's a little wide, a little long. It's a little heavy. I feel like it's as heavy as the C80 almost. Definitely makes the C80 kind of, you know, front heavy. The zoom ring on it is very, it's kind of small, and it's at the head of the lens. So there's another ring in front of it for focus. I kind of wish they were swapped. I wish focus was at the tip and the zoom control was closer to the operator and a little bit thicker. But the image is great. I love it. I like Sigma art lenses. And one of the reasons I chose the Sigma 24-70 is because it's replacing my previous go-to lens, the lens that pretty much stayed on my C200 for maybe like 60 to 70% of the time, and that is this, the Sigma 18-35 1.8. And this came out over 10 years ago now, and I have still been using it. Now, this is a Super 35 lens, so it does not cover full frame. However, I did some tests, and I'll put those in. It still works. You could still use it on the C80. From about 24 to 35 millimeters, it does cover the full sensor. So you can get that 1.8, but it's limited to 24 to 35. Will I still use this lens? Probably not. I might. I'll do more tests with it. I'll kind of see how it works. Maybe I'll use it for some interviews, maybe. So 18 to 35, it still can work for you just in a 24 to 35, but you're getting that 1.8, and a 1.8 on a full frame sensor looks pretty good. Those are my lenses. That's what I'll be using on the C80. I'm curious what you'll be using on the C80. Where or what am I missing? Is there something where it's like, oh, how do you not have this lens? Like I said, I'm definitely considering getting a 50 millimeter. Let me know what you think I should get. Sigma, Canon, one of those fancy cinema primes. I plan on doing a lot more videos about the Canon C80, about filmmaking, documentary filmmaking. I'm thinking about doing a C80 versus C100, C100 Mark II video. I know those are cameras that are over 10 years old. They were sort of my first cinema cameras. I love them. I would love to just kind of see a side-by-side, not necessarily comparing footage, but even going through some of the build quality and the specs. And, you know, if you watched my unboxing and first impressions of the C80, you would know that hinge. Anyway, thank you for watching. Stay tuned for more.